Okay, so we're on page 284 of this edition, Judges chapter 16, verse 23, finishing the story of Samson. And Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shekidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We left off where he revealed his secret to Delilah of his supernatural strength, and Philistine men grabbed him and gouged out his eyes and shackled him, brought him down to Gaza, and then his hair started to grow back. So that's where we left off. So we'll read 23 to the end. V'sarnei plishtim ne'esfu lizboach zevach gadol ledagon Elohehem ulesimcha vayomru Natan Eloheinu biyadenu et Shimshon oivenu. So the Philistine lords gathered to sacrifice a big sacrifice, or, that's the literal meaning, to make a great sacrificial festival to Dagon, which is a Philistine god, their god, and for rejoicing. So they wanted to have fun and have a sacrifice also to Dagon, and they said, our God has given into our hands Samson, our enemy. 24. Vayiru oto ha'am, vayahalelu et Elohehem, ki amru, Natan Eloheinu v'yadenu et oivenu, v'et machariv artzenu, ve'asher hirba et chalalenu. So the people saw him and they praised, like the word hallel, hallelu. They praised their God, for they said, our God has given into our hands our enemy, the one who destroyed our land, the one who caused many to be slain. Like hirba et chalalenu, I think it's the best literal translation. Increased our slain, or who has slain many of us, it says here in the English translation. Vayahi ki tov libam, vayomru, kir'u l'shimshon v'yisachek lanu, v'yikra'u l'shimshon mibeit ha'asurim. Now it looks like it should be ha'asirim, but there's an asterisk there above the first yud, and the yud has a dot next to it, so that the asterisk leads below the line, that it's supposed to be read ha'asurim, like that yud should be above. Mibeit ha'asurim, vayet sachek lifnehem, vayamidu oto bein ha'amudim. So when their hearts felt good, which could probably mean when they were drunk, or like overly celebratory, whatever they were celebrating with, they were in a great mood. Okay, so however they got into that great mood, they're in that great mood, and they said, call Samson and he'll entertain us. So they called Samson. You got to kind of picture like a Roman gladiator thing happening. So this is, several centuries before Roman gladiators and things that happened in Colosseums. So call out Samson so he can entertain us. And they called Samson from the jail, the prison house, it says. That's the literal translation. But they called him from jail, and he entertained them. he made fun in front of them. However that looked, I have no idea what that meant. Like, what kinds of things did they do to make the people laugh? What did they do to Samson to make him laugh, make the people laugh? And they stood him between the pillars. What pillars? So we don't even know they're inside. So, or maybe it's pillars that are outside. So we don't know. I mean, I have a picture in my head that he's in some kind of temple, some indoor space, and they put him between the pillars.
Um, Jenna,
Yes.
last week, I Googled the story, and of course, on YouTube, you can watch the entire Cecil B. DeMille Samson and Delilah movie,
Oh,
which
okay. Yeah.
predated the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's interesting that they follow what the parts that they invented and the parts that they kept true.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
the whole part of Dagon, the god of the
Right.
Philistines. I mean, they really, I mean, they
Yeah.
emphasized kind of I mean, they made a love story out of it, but if you divorce that part, it was kind of
Right.
interesting. The visuals were hard to shake.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So, with the Ten Commandments at the end, when the credits roll, there are rabbis there that are listed as advisors. So I don't know if that was the case for the Samson and Delilah, but and the Midrash. I mean, the classic source to go to, the easiest source to go to is a book called Legends of the Jews, edited by H.L. Ginsberg, Louis Ginsberg from JTS, and it might be available on Sefaria for free because it's more than 100 years old. Um, and that arranges all the Midrash in order of the Bible, as opposed to going to different Midrashic sources on separately. It was so he edited it down into the order of the Bible. So if you want to look up, I don't know if it's on Sefaria. I wonder. I have the Sefaria app, and let's see if I can find it. Um, let's see, Midrash. Legends of the Jews. There we go. But can you search in there? Um, just a second. Let me figure this out. It's worth looking, and I'm sorry to waste the time, but there's table of content. Oh, I don't. So there is a search feature on. So if I do Samson and Delilah, and then Legends.
So maybe we could just use Safari and Legends of the Jews instead of Judges.
Well, the Midrash, it's
I'm
a good
joking.
it's a good reference. Um, no, it doesn't come up that way. So I don't know if I can find the story quickly in it. I don't know what volume it would be. I have the books are up here in the
Well,
library. Somebody
while
got,
you're looking, a quick question.
go
That
ahead.
one interesting thing that I noted in the film was at the very end, it ends with, I guess, Samson's maybe, I didn't watch the whole thing, I only watched the ending part. It ends with maybe what was Samson's Jewish wife and a young boy,
Oh,
and they're kind of following him around. They're pleading they're pleading with the Philistines to release him.
right.
And anyway, the young boy is not only is he played by Russ Tamblyn, who ended up being in West Side Story, but
Oh,
here he's a young boy, but he's Saul. His character
oh,
is. So I don't know if is
that's
there a
in the mid.
connection?
That's probably in the Midrash, but I'm looking it up now.
Okay.
Um, okay. Um, it actually has in here. So this is volume 4 of Legends of the Jews. It says from Joshua to Esther. And the part about Samson begins on page 47 and only goes to page 49. Samson won his first victory over the Philistines by means of the jawbone of the ass on which Abraham had made his way to Mount Moriah. So this is what the rabbis do. They take stories. So stories in the Bible for the rabbis do not exist in a vacuum. Things about the story are to be referenced back to other stories that happened before. So how did he find that jawbone of the ass? Right, like in the book of Judges that we read last week or the week before, it just happened to be there. So nothing just happens to be there for the rabbis. That's a known jawbone from the donkey that Abraham rode when he went with Isaac up to Mount Moriah. Okay?
Does Samson know that?
It's Midrash, Bess.
No, I'm just
It's
saying.
not.
No, I know. That's why I use quotes.
Who knows? I don't know. I'm just reading what it says here. It had been preserved miraculously. And then there's a footnote. After this victory, a great wonder befell. Samson was at the point of perishing from thirst when water began to flow from his own mouth as from a spring. Besides physical prowess, Samson possessed also spiritual distinctions. He was unselfish to the last degree. He had been of exceeding great help to the Israelites, but he never asked the smallest service for himself. When Samson told Delilah that he was a Nazirite unto God, she was certain that he had divulged the true secret of his strength. She knew his character too well to entertain the idea that he would couple the name of God with an untruth. There was a weak side to his character too. He allowed sensual pleasures to dominate him. The consequence was that he who went astray after his eyes lost his eyes. Even this severe punishment produced no change of heart. He continued to lead his old life of profligacy in prison, and he was encouraged thereto by the Philistines, who set aside all considerations of family purity in the hope of descendants who should be the equals of Samson in giant strength and stature. Okay, so that's a fascinating midrash that he had his way with Philistine prisoners. As throughout life, Samson had given proofs of superhuman power, so in the moment of death, he entreated God to realize in him the blessing of Jacob and endow him with divine strength. He expired with these words upon his lips, right? Well, I don't think that the book is going to tell us what he said. He only asked God for the strength to be restored so he can push the pillars apart, and then all the Philistines in the temple died. So the rabbis come up with a prayer. O Master of the world, vouchsafe unto me in this life a recompense for the loss of one of my eyes. For the loss of the other I will wait to be rewarded in the world to come. Even after his death, Samson was a shield unto the Israelites. Fear of him had so cowed the Philistines that for 20 years they did not dare attack the Israelites.
Didn't we read that he was not of large stature, that he was of...
I don't know. Right, just a regular guy. But, for the Midrash, that's not good enough.
Well, that would be contradictory. Not an embellishment.
Okay, yeah, I can't tell you, Bess. This is what the story is. So it says here that Samson and Delilah had a son named Micah. So you said, Barry, that the son was Saul?
He came at the end. He came in the movie version. He came with with an Israelite woman who is begging for his freedom before whatever happened, and they walked off together. And she mentioned his name was Saul. But I was curious if there was the other thing I noted.
It's not here.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I was going to say something, but I figured maybe Alter would. Making sport was also a euphemism for what happened with Abraham and Abraham's son. With
Oh, yeah, that's the same idea
and I
of,
wonder if
well,
the
first of
rabbis
all,
took that idea of making sport with being
a sexual thing.
yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Isaac and Rebecca were metzachek. Avimelech sees Isaac and Rebecca metzachek while he's watching from the window. So that's understood to be some kind of sexual, loving kind of thing happening. But also, Sarah notices that Ishmael and Isaac were metzachek. And she didn't like that. And that's why whatever that metzachek was, she wanted Hagar and Ishmael banished from the home. So I don't know. I don't know if it's always has a sexual connotation or not. What it would be here, I don't know, because the narrative tells us that only Samson is brought out, but are women brought out, are animals brought out, and then he's forced to do whatever with those. We don't know. We don't know. Okay, so he's between the pillars. Verse 26. Vayomer Shimshon el hana'ar hamachazik biyado hanicha oti vehamisheni et ha'amudim asher habayit nachon aleihem ve'esha'en aleihem. So Samson says to the lad, the servant, who's holding his hand, I guess guiding him because he's blind, leave me that I may feel or touch the pillars on which the house is set on, and I will lean on them. Vahabayit 27, Vahabayit malei ha'anashim v'hanashim v'shama kol sarnei flishtim v'al hagag kishloshet alafim ish v'isha haroim bisachok shimshon. So the house was full of men and women, and they're all the lords of the Philistines, and on the roof. About 3,000 men and women watching the making fun of Samson or Samson's entertainment, something like that. So it's a full house. 28. Well, because it's a full house because this is the guy who caused the agricultural and economic collapse of the Philistines. So it would be like, I don't know, like if Osama bin Laden had been captured and not killed and then brought to America for trial, that you would think that there would be a lot of people there to watch that.
Rabbi,
Yes, Alan.
so I was wondering, there's a different word for making sport. It was vayitzachek the first
Yes.
time, and this time
It's with the letter sin.
is that significant?
So it could be significant, but the letter tzadi and the letter sin often are interchangeable. And so the English translation translates them both the same way. So I'm not, but I don't know. We'll look at Alter in a moment when we get to looking at the commentaries. We'll see if he translates it differently. 28, Vayikra Shimshon el Adonai, Vayomar, Adonai Elohim, Zachreni na, V'chazkeni na, Ach hapa'am hazeh, ha'Elohim, Ve'inakma nekam achat, Mishtei enai mi plishtim. So we do have. So I don't know why Legends of the Jews offered a different prayer. This is what Samson is saying to God. Samson called out to God and said, God, my God, remember me and restore my strength this one time, God, so that I can enact revenge one time. So I can enact revenge one time for my 2 eyes, or from my 2 eyes, against the Philistines. Vayilpot Shimshon and et shnei amudei hatavech asher habayit nachon aleihem vayisamech aleihem echad bimino ve'echad bismolo. So vayilpot, it's an unusual word, lamed fei taf, I'm not sure. So it says here he took fast hold. We'll look at altar. Like I said, we'll look at altar in a moment. Well, you know what? Let's just look at the translation part of this. So he may play for us, and he played before them. And played. So he translates it as played every time, whether it's with a tzadi or whether it's with a sin. And then vayilpot, 29. Samson grasped. He grasped. Okay, so Samson grasped the 2 pillars, the 2 supporting pillars, or the 2 middle pillars. The tavech means among. So it could be in the middle. The 2 middle pillars that the house is resting on, like it's the support beams or the support pillars. And he leaned on them, or he rested his hands on them. So the word for rabbinical ordination is smicha. Smicha is the same word as this word. Smicha is when a rabbi puts it, traditionally, it would be his hands on his student and conveying the blessing of the title of rabbi. So that's smicha. Also, when offering a sacrifice in the temple in Jerusalem, you had to put your hands on the animal before giving it over to the Kohen to slaughter it and offer it as a sacrifice. So there's some conveying of something in this word lismoch or smicha. So he told the servant, let me lean on he used the word esha'ain at the top of the page in verse 26. He wanted to lean on the pillar. Here it is. It's translated as leaning, but it's this different word. So it's leaning with the idea of you're going to exert some strength in the leaning. Okay? So he leaned on them, one in his right hand, one in his left hand. So he pushed hard. Okay? 30. Vayomer Shimshon Tamot nafshi im plishtim, vayet bechoach, vayipol habayit al hasranim, ve'al kol ha'am asher bo, vayihiyu hametim asher hemit b'moto, rabim, me'asher hemit b'chayav. Samson said, may my body die. Okay, it's may my body die, or just let me die with the Philistines. And he pushed, I think it's pushed. He said, it says here he bent. He pushed with strength, and the house fell on the lords and on all the people in it, and the number of dead that he killed with him killing himself was greater than all the people he killed in his lifetime. 31. Vayerdu Echav v'chol beit avihu vayisu oto vaya'alu vayikberu oto bein sar'a uvein eshtaol bekever manoach aviv v'hu shafat et Israel esrim shana. So his brothers and all of his father's house came down to the Philistine territory, or to Gaza, where this happened, and they carried him and brought him up and buried him between the towns of Tzara and Eshtaol in the grave of Manoach, his father, and he judged Israel 20 years. So he goes out in this great miracle of strength.
Jonah,
Yes, Barry.
I know that the Philistines were considered to be like the long-standing archenemy of the Israelites, which is why Rome.
Not as arch enemy as Amalekites, but Philistines were.
Well, it's the reason that
Yes.
the Romans renamed Israel as Palestine. I mean, right?
Yes, it's from
Yeah.
that name, I think.
Right.
Yes.
And is this the first instance of somebody, an Israelite, clashing with the Philistines? Is this the origins of that rivalry? I mean, I know Goliath fought the Philistines later.
Right.
I mean, David.
No, I think there
David
are other. I think there was another judge or two who fought the Philistines.
Okay,
I think so. I just don't remember. You would think we just read it a few
I
weeks
know.
ago. But the
Yeah.
Philistines appeared before, and there
Okay.
might.
I mean, because he seems to have a decent relationship with them until he doesn't. I mean, he's avoiding
That's
with the
unclear.
women. He's got a group of people following him. When he's going to meet the woman for whatever. Anyway, all right. I just was curious.
I'm not sure. The Book of Judges only tells us what it wants us to know. And it doesn't say, like, during the time of a judge while the Philistines are nearby, it doesn't tell us about the relationship between the tribes of Israel and the Philistines. But there must have been some kind of relationship. People, do people just leave and let be, live and let live? Do they... or was there some business transacted between them? I'm sure there was, but we don't. The Book of Judges doesn't tell us, and it's left to us left to archaeologists to try to figure out what they can find. And I don't know if in Philistine cities have there been any Israelite stuff there. Or in Israelite cities, have there been Philistine stuff there? I don't know enough about archaeological discoveries to know that. I would just imagine that there was some kind of interaction. Clearly, for the Bible, any kind of interaction with any indigenous people of the land of Israel, or anybody encroaching in the land of Israel who's pagan, is a no-no. And so the Bible is not going to be sympathetic to any kind of cavorting like that. And here with Delilah, a Philistine woman, she doesn't come across as a good woman. Her intent, clearly from the book of, she's easily swayed by money to bring about the downfall of her lover husband Samson.
And am I also correct in my memory that the Philistines are not Canaanites, that they come from more of a
They came from
seafaring?
someplace. Yeah, we don't know where they came from, but yes, they're not indigenous to the land of
Indigenous
Israel, and
Canaanites,
it's a
okay.
matter of debate today who they are and where they came from. So, okay, let's look at the commentary on this in the book on 284. Yes,
Jonah,
Bess. Yes, Bess.
in Samson, in Joshua, they are mentioned
The Philistines.
Philistines as being the five lords. Oh, well, they were. I flipped through and I saw it.
So there was fighting with the Philistines in the book of Joshua.
Yes,
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's where they first
but they
appeared.
were local.
Right.
I'm gonna
Yes.
forget.
They were there already when, right. Okay. So below on 284, 23, Dagon, a deity of the Philistines with a temple to his worship in Ashdod, which we find in 1 Samuel. The name has been associated with Dag, fish, or Dagon, corn, and thought of as half man and half fish, or a god of agriculture. But that's only in suggesting that Dagon is a Hebrew word. It's a Philistine god, so it should be a Philistine word, and who knows what it means in the Philistine language, or even if we know what the Philistine language is, or there was such a thing. So this is just the traditional medieval commentators assuming that Dagon is a Hebrew word, and then, yes, it could come from the word Dagon, without a vav, meaning corn, or Dag, meaning fish. The data point to his being a Semite god worshipped even in Babylonia. A place named Beit Dagon occurs in Joshua 15 and 19, and Senchariv's prism inscription mentions a Beit Dagana near Jaffa. Senchariv was from the Assyrian Empire. So that's later when Assyria conquered the northern kingdom of Israel and exiled them to Assyria. So that was a few hundred years after this. 24, they said, what follows is a song based upon a fivefold repetition of the rhyme ending new. 24. Vanatan Eloheinu beyadenu et oivenu. Maybe that's a song because it all rhymes. Vanatan Eloheinu beyadenu et oivenu. All right, maybe it's something that could be a chant that's repeated. This form of song is common in Arabic. Destroyer of our country, they had in mind the episode related in chapter 15. Make us sport, not play the buffoon. The appearance of the man formerly possessed of superhuman strength, but now blind and feeble, would give the drunken mob cause to laugh and jeer. Suffer me, literally give me rest, that is, leave me alone, that I may feel rather and cause me to feel. The pillars, the two middle columns which supported the hall, where the more distinguished people were assembled. 285, the hall was open to a great court with a flat roof, as is usual in the east, upon which the mass of the people sat and stood in a crowd. O Lord God, the pathos of the situation with Samson's plea to God in what he intends to be his last moments is overwhelming. This once avenged, etc. The text is capable of the more effective rendering, the vengeance of one of my two eyes. He feels that the vengeance which he contemplates taking will only be partial, but it is all he can accomplish in the circumstances. Took fast hold of, the meaning of lafat is to grasp with a twisting movement. Me, literally my soul, the breathing part of my body. Bent, standing between the columns, he exerted all his strength and pushed them apart. Brethren, his kinsmen, house of his father, see chapter 9. Took him in the confusion which followed the disaster. Many Philistines searched among the debris for lost relatives, and consequently the Hebrews were not noticed when they came to look for Samson's body. Sarah Eshtaol, see chapter 13. He judged Israel 20 years. Rabbinic exegesis explains that the clause is not a repetition of chapter 15, verse 20, but provides the information that the fear which Samson had aroused among the Philistines during the 20 years of his judgeship lingered for 20 years after his death. The task of the judge to obtain security for the people was accordingly discharged by Samson for 40 years. Okay, so this is understood then to mean an extra 20 years from what we learned before. Okay.
Jonah, I just
Yes.
want to go back. I thought when we talked about Delilah, I don't remember the other pronunciation, that you said, we said that it's not necessarily that she was Philistine. She could have been something else.
The way it was presented, right. It didn't say necessarily that she was a Philistine woman. Right. Yeah.
That goes along with my thesis that she went along with the Philistines to escape from being with Samson.
Maybe. Yeah, so
Well,
it just,
I have a-
she's a woman from Nachal Sorek, it says back in verse 4.
Which
So I have a corollary question to that because,
Yes.
it says that Samson was a judge. Now, previous judges, I mean, they did things. Samson doesn't really do things for the people. I mean,
Well, he killed Philistines.
he killed Philistines, but those seemed like they were personal vengeance or personal vendettas, not necessarily like others, like Joshua went to war.
Right.
Samson as
Yeah.
a judge doesn't seem to fit the pattern, other than
Right.
that he killed, Israelite enemies.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
It is
All right, I just wanted to see if I missed something.
No, you didn't miss anything. But I'm sure the rabbis understand it, that he wasn't just acting on his own behalf. He was acting, because he was a judge, he was acting on behalf of the people. And the way he did it was unusual. There was nobody like him before or like him after in the Bible who just had this superhuman strength that could do things like this. I'm trying to think. Go ahead.
it might not mention what he did, the mundane things, settling disputes or
Right. It doesn't say that about other judges either. So, yeah, other judges lead the people in war. They gather troops together and they go to war. He doesn't do that.
doesn't need to.
I also wonder if in rabbinic literature somewhere there's not some rabbinic source that says that Goliath was a result of Samson's being used for breeding when he was in captivity. Because Goliath was this other one who had sort of superhuman power that was able to defeat armies.
Right. So, if I'm sure there's the story of, okay, so there is on page 85 in volume 4 of Legends of the Jews, it has a section that begins encounter with Goliath. Goliath, it will be remembered, Ginsburg is saying here, was the son of the Moabitess Orpah, the sister-in-law of David's ancestress, his great-grandmother, Ruth, and her sister as well, both having been the daughters of the Moabite king Eglon. So he's a Moabite. David and Goliath differed as widely as their granddams, for in contrast to Ruth, the pious religious Jewess, Orpah had led a life of unspeakable infamy. Her son Goliath was jeered at as the son of 100 fathers and one mother. Okay, so in return for the 40 steps Orpah had accompanied her mother-in-law Naomi, Goliath the Philistine, her son, was permitted to display his strength and skill for 40 days, and in return for the 4 tears Orpah had shed on parting from her mother-in-law, she was privileged to give birth to 4 giant sons. Of the 4, Goliath was the strongest and the greatest. Okay, so that's the ancestry of Goliath. Okay, all right, so from Alter, now page 192, below the line, It begins with verse 25, that he may play for us. The playing might be dancing, or more likely, blindly stumbling about while the audience laughs. Okay, so he doesn't suggest anything sexual happening here. So I don't know. Let me rest. This might also be construed to mean lead me. All the Philistine overlords were there, so that Samson's vengeance may be complete. The rulers of the 5 Philistine towns, the very men who plotted his blinding and captivity, are present. On the roof, about 3,000 men and women. Again, we have a multiple of 3. It's clearly implied that there are many more people in the main space of the temple. Just this time, on 193, at the penultimate moment of the story, the thematically fraught word pa'am, time, appears again. It shows pointedly the same root as the verb drive or pound in chapter 13 that marks the beginning of Samson's narrative. That I may avenge myself in one act of vengeance from the Philistines. It's true that Samson, in his last moment, turns in prayer to God, perhaps feeling that his great strength has returned, but not being quite sure, and in any case, recognizing that its ultimate source is God. But even now, his motive is personal vengeance. One sees why the messenger of the Lord prophesied that Samson would no more than begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. And the dead that he killed in his death were more than he had killed in his life. Samson's career as an Israelite champion ends in an act of wholesale destruction in which he too dies like fire that consumes everything in its path and eventually itself as well.
Alter doesn't say anything about the god Dagon.
No, not at all. He skips that. Yeah, he goes from verse 21 to verse 25 with no comment on that. Yeah. Now, if is there an index to this book? No. There isn't.
Asimov has a lot to say about Dagon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I don't know if you can trust Asimov so much as mainly a science fiction writer. How much can we credit his? How much, can we count his research as much as a Bible scholar? So, but I'm just saying, that's. Yeah, what does he say about it?
Oh, it's somewhat lengthy.
Oh.
The word corn and dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to get to a story that is, no, is it happening here? No. We're going to come up to it soon. Yeah. Right. Chapter 19 is where chapter 19 is a story that is really an awful story, and we'll eventually get there. Let's see how much of chapter 17 we can do. It's only 13 sentences, so we'll read the first 6. Vayehi ish mehar Ephraim, ushemo Michayahu. Michayehu. Okay, so there are a lot of there are several names in Hebrew that have a hu ending. Like Jeremiah is Yirmiyahu, Isaiah Yeshayahu. Okay, so the hu ending is a reference to God. Okay, so there was a man from the Ephraimite hill country, and his name they translated here as Micah, but it should be Michayahu. Vayomer le'imo, excuse me, Elef umeah hakesef, asher lukach lach, va'at alit, v'gam amart bo'aznai, hine hakesef iti, ani lekachtiv, va'tomer imo, baruch beni la'adonai. He said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, and you cursed, and you cursed about it, and you also said, in my ears, or I heard you say, here's the money with me, I took it. And his mother said, you are blessed, my son, to God. So this is cryptic. Who is this? Which could be why in Ginsburg, I read to you quickly that Delilah and Samson had a son named Micah. So that's this guy. So according to the Midrash, this story is not coming out of it's not a non sequitur. This guy is Samson and Delilah's son, and the money he's talking about is the money that Delilah was paid by the Philistines for getting the secret about Samson's strength.
Which also means that his mother is Delilah.
Right. But yes, but we don't know. We don't know. We'll see. The commentary here on the page has a different idea of who this person is. So let's keep going through verse 6, and then we'll read all the commentary. Vayashev et elef ume'ah hakesef le'imo, vatomer imo hakdesh hikdashti et hakesef la'adonai miadi livni la'asot pesel umasecha va'ata ashivenu lach. So he returned the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother, and his mother said, I have set aside or dedicated or sanctified this money to God from my hand for my son to make an idol and a graven image or a molten image, and now I will restore it to you. So he gives the money to her. She gives the money to have this idol and molten image made and restored to him. Okay, still, bizarre story. For Vayashev et hakesef le'imo, vatikach imo 200 kesef, vatitnehu latzoreif, Vayasehu pesel umasecha, vayehi bevet Michayahu. So he returned the money to his mother. His mother took 200 silver and gave it to a smelter, or someone who melts down silver or like works with molten metal. And he made it into an idol, a molten image, and that which was put into the house of Micah, Mikayahu. V'ha'ish Micha lo beit Elohim. Vaya'as ephod utrafim. Vayimale et yad achad mibanav. Vayihilo lechohen. And the man Micah, which is why I guess they translate his name as Micah the whole time, because now they chop off the yud and the vav and just make it Micah. So the man Micah had a house of God, and he made an ephod, which is some kind of priestly garment, and little idols, and he consecrated one of his sons as a Kohen. 6, Bayamim ahem ein melech b'Yisrael, ish ha-yashar be'enav yaseh. In those days there was no king in Israel, and there was every man for himself, supposedly doing the right thing, or what he thought was the right thing. So this is a right thing that Micah is thinking of doing, having this house of God with an idol in it and other idols in it. How he thinks that's the right thing, I'm not sure, because the Torah clearly says you're not supposed to do that. So how is this Okay, what are we supposed to make of this story? So let's look
But
at
no more judges.
we don't know yet. Is Micah here going to become a judge? We don't know.
I'm excited.
So let's see. So bottom of 286, the rabbis placed the incidents of Micah and the concubine. So that's this 19 to 21 in the age of Othniel. The reason for the juxtaposition of the Micah story and the career of Samson is twofold. It deals with the Danites, from which tribe Samson originated, and it mentions the sum of 1,100 shekels, the identical sum paid Delilah by each of the Philistine lords for his betrayal. In both cases, the money was given for wicked purposes. Okay, so there's a cryptic connection of the money and also the fact that the tribe of Dan is going to be mentioned here. So this story is the beginning of the final story of the book of Judges, which goes to the end of the book. Okay, a man from Mount Ephraim named Micah, who had stolen 1,100 shekels of silver from his mother, on hearing that she had pronounced a curse upon the known thief, returned the money. His mother gave 200 pieces of this to the silversmith to make an idol for Micah's house. Hill country of Ephraim, see chapter 2. We are not told more precisely where he lived. Micah, Hebrew Michayehu, who is like God. From verse 4 on, he's called by the shortened form of the name. Malbim, which another medieval commentator, explains that originally he was righteous and was called Michayehu. After he commenced to worship idols, however, the letters of God's name were omitted from his name, and he was called Micah. Okay, so somehow it was purposeful in this way to show that he has, like, in other words, there are people in the Torah, like Abraham and Sarah, who get their names changed, adding a letter to their name once they've established the covenant relationship with God. So here's the opposite. You get part of your name taken off if you leave the covenant and go to idol worship.
From what you just read, though,
Yeah.
it was Micah that stole the money?
That's the introduction here. That's how it seems. We'll see what Alter says
Okay.
to try to figure out, where's the story coming from? There's details that are missing. Okay. His mother, according to some Jewish authorities, she was Delilah, on the supposition that the sum of money stolen was received by her from the Philistines. Rashi, 287, rejects this view, however, since the Seder Olam, which is a classic rabbinic source that puts all the chronology, like all the people in the Bible, it dates them, like figuring out what Hebrew date it is and what were the dates that events happened. That's the Seder Olam. So Rashi rejects that Delilah was his mother, since the Seder Olam places these incidents at the time of Othniel. Okay, so, all right, so the Seder Olam, I don't know if if it exists today, like did that survive in manuscripts like Mishnah and Talmud did? I don't know. We'd have to look that up. I really don't know, but there are references to the Seder Olam in other rabbinic sources. Taken, the thief avoids the stronger verb stolen. From thee, literally to thee. Utter a curse upon the thief if he did not restore the money. The power of the curse was believed to be very real, and a parent's curse was the most potent of all. Blessed be, etc. The curse could not be unsaid, but she neutralized it by blessing. She blessed her son for confessing and offering to return the money. Graven image, molten image. The noun pesel signifies a carving of an idol in wood or stone. Then generally an image, even of metal. The masecha was an idol cast in metal, usually gold or silver. The 200 pieces of silver were given to pay the founder, who made the images with the remaining 900 pieces of silver. And when the adverb is inserted in translation to overcome the difficulty of the apparent repetition. Kimchi and Ralbag hold that the money was returned a second time, while Rashi thinks that in verse 3, Micah had only declared his intention to restore it. The founder, literally the refiner, the silversmith. In the Bible, he's mostly a maker of idols. A house of idolatry, wherever the name Elohim is mentioned in this chapter, it is profane since it refers to Micah's idol. Like, we shouldn't think it's referring to God like we refer to Elohim in prayers. No, this is Elohim with a small aleph, if there's such a thing, like God with a small g. Ephod, see chapter 8. Teraphim, the precise nature of this idolatrous object in Hebrew plural form, is not certain. It seems to have been partially or wholly of human shape. Consecrated literally filled his hand, a technical term apparently derived from the rite of filling the priest's hand with sacrificial gifts on his induction. Okay, let's take a look at altar on this.
Una,
Yes.
our book says in verse 5, a house of God. You said that in your book, it's a house of idolatry.
Yes.
But the literal, I'm trying to.
Is house of God, yes. Is
Yes,
the G capitalized?
Yes.
So that's interesting. So I guess the updated edition realized that shouldn't be, and they decided to go with this idea.
Thank you.
Okay, so in altar 194, there was a man from the high country of Ephraim. This formula signals the beginning of a story that does not involve a judge. The two narratives that unfold respectively in chapters 17, 18, and then 19 and 21 constitute a kind of epilogue to the book of Judges, illustrating the general condition of moral and political anarchy in the period before the monarchy. Michaihu. Later in the story, the name appears without the theophoric ending as Micah. The 1,100 silver shekels. Rashi shrewdly observes that this is the precise amount that each of the Philistine overlords paid Delilah. The episodes are linked through the evil silver equal in amount, and in both cases, it's a kind of silver that leads to disaster. You yourself uttered a curse. She pronounced a curse on whoever stole the silver. Look, the silver is with me. He evidently is frightened by the curse, and so is ready to admit he has taken. He avoids saying stolen the silver and will now give it back. Blessed are you. Ehrlich suggests that by these words she seeks to reverse the curse. To make a statue and molten image, Amit argues that this is Hendiadys, a statue that is a molten image, though in 1820 they are separated syntactically by ephod and teraphim. In any case, though the mother dedicates the silver to the Lord, this expression has a strong association with idolatry. And now I give it back to you. If the received text is correct, the silver passes back and forth. He takes it from her, gives it back to her, she gives it to him, he gives it back to her. This rapid exchange may be intentional. It is hot treasure, first stolen by the son from his mother, then earmarked for a questionable end. 200 silver shekels. Either this is the payment for the silversmith's work, and the remaining 900 shekels are used to fashion the statue, or she has quietly pocketed 900 despite her pious vow. And ephod and teraphim, these are both divinatory devices, the latter term used elsewhere to designate household idols. Micah is clearly setting up shop in his little house of God, probably with the intention of exacting payment for rendering sundry cultic services. Every man did what was right in his eyes. The last phrase here is the same one used in chapter 14 by Samson in relation to the Philistine woman he sees in Timnah, but there it's translated as pleased me, because the character is referring to a woman he finds attractive. Okay, to be continued. So it seems like we will meet next Friday, Black Friday. Hope everybody has a Shabbat Shalom and a happy Thanksgiving next week. Be well, everybody. Take care.